how to force your brain to push through resistance and finally win. Let me ask you something. How many times have you sat down with the full intention to get things done outly, to find yourself lost in your phone? Buried in emails or overwhelmed by your to-do list before you even begin? Your brain isn't lazy, it's overloaded. Notifications ping from every direction. Deadlines close in like storm clouds. And that never-ending checklist only grows longer by the hour. You're pulled in 1,000 directions. And the worst part? You've gotten used to it. But what if I told you there's an ancient method to cut through the chaos? A way to silence the noise, sharpen your focus like a laser beam, and finally move with clarity and calm toward your goals, not through hustle, not through brute force, but through something far more powerful: awareness. In this video, I'm going to show you how to apply the Lotus Method, a practice rooted in timeless Eastern philosophy. It has helped monks, warriors, and thinkers through centuries tame the wild mind. It can help you too. This isn't just about productivity hacks. This is about reclaiming your mind. Because if you miss this, you might never truly break free from the patterns keeping you stuck. But if you stay with me, you might just learn how to change your life from the inside out, starting right now. Part 1. Stoic sees struggle with resistance. Meet Stoic, full of potential, big dreams, clear goals. Sound familiar? He wants to get in shape. He wants to grow in his career. He wants better relationships. It's like you. He doesn't lack vision. He knows what he wants, but every time he tries to take action, something pulls him back. Quiet, invisible resistance. And it's not because he's unmotivated. In fact, he consumes endless motivation. YouTube videos, podcasts, self-help books. He's aware of what he needs to do. But when the moment comes to actually do it, he's scrolling his phone, tidying his room, opening new tabs. Sound familiar again? Every time Stoic tries to start something important, his brain redirects him towards something easier. Something safer. His mind whispers, let's just check that one thing first. Before he knows it, the day is gone. He's caught in the loop. Procrastination, self-doubt, guilt, repeat, and he knows it. That's the most painful part. He's not clueless. He sees exactly what's happening, but he still can't break free. But here's the truth. This isn't just Stoic's problem. It's a human one. Our minds are wired to avoid discomfort. It's a survival instinct. The moment we face a task that feels difficult, unfamiliar, or uncertain, our mind flinches. It seeks refuge in comfort: social media, video games, random YouTube rabbit holes, even daydreaming. It's anything to avoid the tension of real growth. So Stoic finds himself locked in a silent war. Not with the world, not with other people, but with himself. No matter how much motivational content he consumes, it never sticks. It sparks for a moment, then fizzles. Because motivation isn't the issue. What he needs is something deeper, something ancient, something grounded. That's when he begins to explore Eastern philosophy. In those traditions, the mind is often compared to a wild monkey, always jumping, always restless, always searching for something to latch onto, avoiding anything. That feels hard, the Buddha once said. Asterisk, your worst enemy cannot harm you as much as your own unguarded thoughts. And suddenly, it clicks for Stoic. His own thoughts have become his biggest obstacle, not because they are evil, but because they are intimate. His mind constantly pulls him away from what he truly wants and toward what feels comfortable in the moment. In this resistance, this inner tug-of-war isn't a character flaw. It's part of being human. But the ancient monks didn't just identify this struggle. They studied it. And more importantly, they overcame it. they develop techniques to tame the monkey mind, to bring it back to stillness, to regain focus, clarity, and inner calm. And that's exactly what the Lotus method is about. Because what Stoic is facing, and maybe what you are facing, isn't just procrastination. It's not laziness. It's the human condition. The mind, by nature, resists challenge, prefers safety, familiarity, but the Lotus method teaches us something powerful. You don't overcome resistance by fighting it with brute force. You overcome it by understanding it. And that's the first step on this journey. Awareness. To recognize the resistance. To observe it without judgment. To see it for what it is. And then step by step begin to move through it. Previously, we uncovered a critical truth. Resistance doesn't mean failure. It means your mind is doing what it was programmed to do, avoid discomfort. But what if you could change that relationship entirely? You see, your mind resists because it believes it's protecting you. When a task feels daunting, or when uncertainty creeps in, your brain tries to shield you from potential failure, embarrassment, or stress. It nudges you toward what's safe, what's known, what's easy. But here's the twist: awareness can change everything. This is the beginning of a new chapter for Stoic. Once he becomes aware that his brain is naturally wired to dodge discomfort, he begins to see the game differently. He doesn't blame himself anymore. He stops beating himself up for procrastinating, for hesitating, for retreating. And this shift, it's subtle but powerful. It marks the first lesson in the Lotus method. Before you attempt to change the mind, you must first understand it. For Stoic, the battle becomes clearer. His mind isn't broken. It's just playing out old patterns that once kept humans alive. But now he sees the futility of fighting his thoughts head-on. Harder only exhausts him. So he begins to take a different path. Instead of trying to bulldoze through mental resistance, Stoic pauses. He acknowledges what his mind is doing, trying to protect him. It's acting out of care, not sabotage. And this acknowledgement alone softens the tension. But here's the key. Stoic doesn't surrender to these protective instincts. He doesn't let them dictate his actions. Instead, he learns to observe them without judgment. This practice of seeing your thoughts as they are, without labeling them as good or bad, is a core pillar of the Lotus method. Because here's the truth. Before you can change your thoughts, you must become conscious of them. Awareness always comes first. Stoic learns to watch his thoughts like clouds drifting through the sky. Some are dark and heavy, fleeting, but none of them define who he is. They simply pass. And now, having seen his mind clearly, Stoic is ready to take the next step. Part 2. Embracing the flow of life with awareness awakened, Stoic realizes something important. His old approach? It doesn't work anymore. He's been trying to force progress, powering through resistance, treating every difficult moment like a wall to smash through. And yet he's constantly drained, frustrated, spinning in circles. So he starts searching for a different kind of wisdom. Not the loud kind, but the quiet, enduring kind. That's when he stumbles upon the teachings of Lao Tzu, the ancient Taoist philosopher. Lao Tzu spoke of a concept known as Wu Wei, the practice of non-resistance, of moving with life, not against it. One quote in particular strikes Stoic. By letting it go, it all gets done. At first, he doesn't understand. Go help you accomplish anything? But as he sits with it, something begins to shift. Maybe the reason he's been struggling so hard isn't because he's weak, but because he's been fighting the wrong battle. He's been pushing against life, against his own mind, against his own energy. and all that effort is exhausting him. What if doing hard things didn't require brute force? What if there was a way to meet challenges without burning out? That's what the Lotus method suggests, tells us. Maybe the answer isn't to fight harder. Maybe it's to stop fighting altogether, to find the natural current inside the effort. To work with your thoughts, not against them. Wu Wei teaches something radically different from modern hustle culture. It says, when you push, life pushes back. But when you flow with life's rhythms, you move forward with less resistance. It's not about giving up. It's not passivity, it's alignment. And Stoic begins to see that the constant mental battle he's been waging has only made his mind push back harder. So he tries something new. Instead of seeing difficult tasks as enemies, he welcomes them into the flow. He applies Wu Wei to his daily life. Whether it's a workout, a work deadline, or a tough conversation, he doesn't brace himself with stress. He pauses, he breathes, he lets go of the resistance, and in doing so, something remarkable begins to happen. The hard tasks start to feel lighter, not because they've changed, but because he has. His energy isn't leaking into inner conflict anymore. It's focused, calm, flowing. And with this, Stoic steps deeper into the path of the Lotus by letting go of resistance and stepping into the flow of life. The constant internal battle that once drained his energy now begins to dissolve. He's no longer wasting effort fighting himself. He's learning to move with life instead of against it. And this change brings something unexpected: peace. Tasks that once felt like climbing uphill now feel lighter. He's still doing the same things, but his approach has changed. There's no more force, no more tension. Instead, there's a calm presence, a quiet power that flows through him as he works. This marks the next step in the Lotus method: releasing resistance and discovering harmony in effort. But Stoic's journey isn't over. In fact, it's just beginning. Now that he's stopped resisting, he realizes there's something else he's been missing: stillness. The kind of stillness that isn't just the absence of noise, but the presence of deep, intentional awareness. Part 3. The power of stillness and reflection. As Stoic moves forward, begins to seek ways to quiet the restlessness within. Though he's no longer battling resistance, his mind is still noisy, still bouncing from one thought to the next. That's when he encounters Zen Buddhism and the practice of Zazen, or sitting meditation. At first it sounds almost too simple. Just sit, just breathe. But when Stoic actually tries it, he's stunned by how difficult it is. The moment he sits down in silence, his mind goes into overdrive. Thoughts flood in, unfinished tasks, random memories, doubts, distractions. His instinct is to jump up and do anything, just to escape the discomfort. He realizes something profound. He's addicted to motion, to doing, to fixing. But as he dives deeper into the teachings of Zen Master Dogen, a quote stands out: "If you can't find the truth right where you are, where else do you expect to find it?" Those words hit him hard. He begins to understand that the clarity he's been chasing out there in books, in routines, in external achievements, was always waiting inside. True strength isn't about moving faster. It's about being still enough to see clearly. As Stay continues to practice Zazen, something remarkable begins to happen. The mental noise that once seemed unbearable starts to settle. Like a stormy lake that calms after the wind dies down, his thoughts begin to slow. The water clears, and in that clarity, he starts to see things differently. His challenges no longer look like towering obstacles. They look like invitations. Invitations to grow, to reflect, to respond, react. he realizes that it was his urge to constantly act that made his mind so resistant in the first place. That urge created stress, scattered energy, and burnout. But in stillness, he finds a sharpness in his thinking that he's never experienced before. Now, instead of charging into his next task blindly, he pauses. He reflects. He breathes. And more often than not, the right next step becomes obvious. He doesn't have to force it. This becomes the third, foundational lesson of the Lotus Method: cultivating stillness. Stillness isn't passivity. It's power in its purest form. Like the roots of a lotus flower buried deep in the mud, stillness anchors you. It gives you stability, gives you perspective, and from that quiet place you rise. Stoic begins to see his stressors and challenges. In a new light, they're not just problems, they're nutrients. The mud that feeds his growth. Each moment of stillness becomes an act of self-renewal, a return to balance, a reset. He makes this practice a part of his daily life. Even just a few minutes of stillness in the morning helps him approach the day with a clear, steady mind, and with this mental clarity, his actions become sharper, more deliberate. He's no longer rushing into tasks or forcing outcomes, responding with intention. But Stoic also begins to understand something else. Stillness, by itself, isn't enough. He now knows how to calm his mind. But the next challenge will be even more important: how to turn that calm into purposeful action. And that is exactly where the Lotus Method leads him next. Part 4. Turning reflection into action. Stoic's transformation continues. With stillness now a part of his daily rhythm, he feels more clarity than ever before. His thoughts are no longer chaotic storms. They are steady waves, moving in harmony. But clarity without action is like sunlight without motion, warm but static. Stoic begins to understand that if his inner peace doesn't translate into purposeful action, it risks becoming stagnation. He recalls the practices of the Shaolin monks, those legendary figures who combined deep meditation with disciplined, intentional movement. These monks didn't just sit in stillness, they transformed that stillness into every movement, every breath, every strike. Their martial arts weren't just physical training, they were acts of clarity made visible. Inspired by their discipline, Stowe begins to approach his own life like a Shaolin monk would approach training, with precision, purpose, and patience. He no longer sees his daily tasks as chores to get through. Instead, each one becomes a practice ground for presence. Whether he's answering an email, working on a fitness goal, or helping a friend, he commits to being fully present. He realizes something powerful. Every action, no matter how small, deserves focus. He doesn't need to juggle everything at once. Instead, he channels his newfound clarity into doing one thing at a time and doing it well. His mind and body are in sync, calm, and deliberate. He learns that true mastery doesn't come from doing more. It comes from doing less with more intention. This is the fourth core lesson of the Lotus Method: action with intention. With this focus, Stoic begins to approach his relationships, his career, and his personal growth with a sharper sense of direction. He notices that the tasks he once dreaded no longer feel overwhelming. Why? Because he's no longer scattered. He's centered. He moves through challenges with calm determination. He's no longer flailing. He's flowing. It's like a Shaolin monk practicing a code, each movement purposeful. It's each moment connected to the next. But even with this sharpened focus, something begins to stir. He notices a new challenge rising not from the outside world, but from within. Impatience. Despite his progress, despite his growing clarity and presence, the results aren't showing up as quickly as he hoped. Days pass, and the milestones he expected to reach still seem far away. A quiet frustration begins to grow. Is he doing something wrong? Is he missing a step? And then memory returns. He recalls the teachings of the Eastern monks who often spoke about the lotus flower, the symbol of this entire path. The lotus doesn't bloom in a day. It grows slowly, pushing its way through thick, murky mud. Day after day, with no sign of progress above the surface. And then, one morning it blooms. Not because it rushed, but because it was ready. This becomes the final and perhaps most profound lesson of the Lotus method. Patience. Stoic realizes that he's been so focused on transformation that he forgot one of the core truths of growth. It takes time. Real change is quiet. It happens underground, often unnoticed, until one day it reveals itself. He learns to stop forcing progress, to stop expecting instant results. He lets go of the need to rush, and in that release he finds peace. Like the lotus, he too will bloom but only in his own time, and that's when everything clicks. All the pieces of the Lotus method, awareness, known resistance, stillness, intentional action, and now patience, come together in harmony. Stoic doesn't feel like the same person who once fought with his own mind. He's no longer ruled by distraction, fear, or frustration. He's grounded, focused, at peace with the pace of his journey. And so we leave you with this. Where are you in your journey? Are you still resisting? Still trying to force your mind into submission? Or are you ready to take the first step to notice, to pause, to move with intention, and most of all, to be patient with yourself? Whatever step you're on, know this: you are growing. And like the lotus, your bloom is coming. If this video brought you even one moment of clarity, one breath of peace, or one spark of motivations, subscribe to Stoic Havenway. Let's walk this path together, one mindful step at a time. Thanks for watching. Until next time, stay grounded, stay intentional, and never stop blooming.